Welcome into a Hump Day edition of the Sports Bash, a shortened, abbreviated edition here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. We're only here for about 95 minutes. Hunter Brody also on hand as well because we lead you up to the Steelers and the Ravens. They're finally going to play a game. They're finally going to play football, which means, Broads, all the players are going to get paid.
That's exciting.
I know the priorities are a little out of whack, but you know what? I'm just happy that anybody's able to do anything at this point because the way 2020 is gone, whew! By the way, it's December 2nd.
Yeah, it's crazy, honestly. But I will be honest with you. After they've been making all these moves and moving the game from Thursday on Thanksgiving to Sunday afternoon to Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, I've sort of lost track. It's because there's been so much happening that I've almost been overwhelmed with this storyline of this game to the point where I don't even know how many players are unavailable due to COVID. Is there like an obnoxious amount unavailable?
So there was an obnoxious amount if there would have been a game on Sunday or Monday. But apparently because we are on Wednesday, some of the players came off the COVID list the last couple of days, like Brandon Williams, their number one nose tackle for the Ravens, so he's playing tonight. But still no Lamar Jackson, so you can see RG3 today. No Ingram and J.K. Dobbins because they didn't have any practice time the last 2 days. Marquise Pouncey for the Steelers is on the COVID list, so you have a new center for the Steelers, so maybe the Ravens have a chance.
You know what's funny? We kind of brought this up at the end of last week after, what were we on? After Thanksgiving on Friday.
What day is it? What time is it?
Yeah, exactly. We talked about the Denver Broncos and how it seemed like they were using this Ravens-Steelers game a little differently. They had a different mindset in terms of, hey, we got to keep pushing this back when the Broncos, it was, oh, you're on a wide receiver on your practice squad at quarterback? Who cares? It seems like they went out of their way specifically to make sure that this matchup gets the best that it possibly can be, and that kind of bothers me. It's like you view this differently than the Denver Broncos, which I understand the difference, don't get me wrong, but from a league standpoint, I think that's totally unfair.
I mean, look, life's unfair also. Like, let's be realistic. I mean, is it fair to have fans at Cowboy games but not at other teams' games? Like, this whole situation this year is just bonkers.
Good point. No doubt about it. I just thought it's interesting. One team has to use a practice squad wide receiver as their quarterback, hike the football and say good luck, while the Baltimore Ravens and the Steelers, they're buying time to get back their best players. Now, once again, I understand the circumstances are different with those two teams competing for that playoff spot, but I don't know. It just seems a little odd to me. But at the end of the day, I really couldn't care less about these two teams or three teams that we're discussing right now. I care about the Eagles, and guess what, Josh? They piss me off.
Look, this whole situation with the Eagles is frustrating because, as I was saying last night on game night, which you cannot hear tonight because we got the Ravens-Steelers followed by the Jimmy V Classic, Gonzaga versus West Virginia tonight. But I was saying last night on game night, bro, is that, look, I'm at a point with this team where when I look at their problems, I don't even know who exactly to blame per se anymore because of the fact that, to me, everyone's at fault at this point. And I think ultimately the buck has to stop with Jeffrey Lurie. He's the owner. He's the man in charge. He knows more than you, me, and every one of the fans out there about the intricacies of what's going on. I talked with Scott Grayson about this Monday on game night, that there's no media in the locker room. There's no media in the building, so we don't even fully know what's going on from day to day like we usually do. So to me, everything comes down to the owner, and the owner has to either own the situation or fix the situation.
I agree with you, and that's huge that you just made that statement, because when there were earlier reports before it got to the chaos that it's at now, I mentioned how I want Jeffrey Lurie to be a part of the solution. So he's pissed off, he's fired up, he didn't go to Cleveland. I admire that he's upset and unwilling to allow this to happen. Like, I'm at a point where I am thrilled that the owner isn't satisfied with what's occurring. At the same time, you need to fix this and be part of the change. You can't just be mad, upset, not showing up. I like that you are that way, but at the same time, let's follow that up. Let's take the next step. That's the initial reaction. how do we now come together and fix those issues? It does fall on Jeffrey Lurie because you're hearing that he has his fingerprints on a lot right now. And when that happens, you have a similar situation to the 76ers. And what do? They got a new identity. They got a new culture. Are you looking at an Eagles organization that has to go down a similar path?
I think that we have to make some admissions that for as frustrated as we are, firing one person doesn't solve everything, right? Like you've talked about Jim Schwartz. I've talked about Press Taylor, but at some point, even if one of those people gets fired, it doesn't solve all the problems. It doesn't fix Carson Wentz's horrible mechanics and footwork. It doesn't fix the fact that this team, even during the Chip Kelly era and even the end of the Andy Reid era, was missing on draft picks left and right. There are problems in this organization that go far beyond just one guy or one position group at this point.
No doubt about it. Now, I want to get your opinion on this because I was thinking about this last night. And yes, this team is always on my mind. It's that chaotic right now, and it's killing me. I'm constantly thinking about this squad. So, is it possible? When I look at Doug Pederson, I'm annoyed with him. I don't think he's some horrendous coach. He needs to be better, but I don't think he has forgotten how to coach. So I look at him and I say, okay, I think he's a good coach. And I look at Carson Wentz and I think there's a good quarterback in there somewhere. But is it possible that these three, and I'll even throw four in there with Jim Schwartz. So Howie Roseman, Carson Wentz, Doug Pederson, Jim Schwartz. Those four people, they have a great skill set, but because of the Super Bowl, because of how big their heads are now, and because they once reached the top, it might not work together. They can all have respectful careers elsewhere, but maybe together, based off of the success that they had and trying to duplicate that again, it just might not have the same chemistry and spark anymore, where you need to admit that and kind of reset this franchise.
Look, I don't know if a reset's necessary, but I hear what you're saying, that, maybe the combination of all of these elixirs are just not working anymore. It's kind of like how, maybe you go to the doctor and the doctor puts you on a medication, right? And the medication you're using works for years. Then one day, your body changes and the working, you have to go and get a new medication, right? It happens to people all the time in their 40s and 50s. Maybe that's where the Eagles are. Maybe one of the ingredients just doesn't work anymore. But I don't know what that ingredient is, because I argue that if Doug Pederson claims he's a collaborator, right? I listen to all my coaches, right? And it seemed like it was working great with Frank Reich and John DeFilippo. And then as soon as those guys left, that's when things fell apart, right? Well, how do I know that Doug is just listening to the wrong people? And the same thing with Howie. He's got Andy Weidel in Joe Douglas's spot. How do I know that Andy Weidel isn't an idiot? Just because he worked for the Ravens organization doesn't make him the smartest man on earth. Or Jim Schwartz. How do I know that Jim Schwartz didn't go to Howie Roseman and say, I need XYZ, and Howie Roseman told him to take a long walk on a short pier? There are so many variables to this I don't think that we know the answers to, and that's why, for me, I'm having trouble isolating.
And when you are in this position, that's when you know it's bad. You should know as media, you should know as a fan base, who is making the final decision? What is happening when it comes to the collaborative effort, coming up with the game plan, executing the game plan? The fact that we have no idea who is the one at the end of the day pushing that final button, I think that shows and it defines what we are witnessing as we speak.
He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. The text board is open at 609-403-0973 for the PlaySugarHouse.com text board to get on the conversation. Again, we will be here until Ravens Steelers kick off at 3:40 today at 97.3 ESPN. Also, Jason Fitz, ESPN radio host, will join us coming up at 3 o'clock. Hunter, the other thing you mentioned about the four people, we always overlook this a little bit as well, but if we can just go down memory road for just a hot second. They established the GM, and then they brought in the head coach and the defensive coordinator separately. Remember that? It was Jim Schwartz was basically hired not because Doug Pederson was like, I want this guy, but because they were trying to get a defensive coordinator with head coaching experience so Doug could focus on the offense. And then it was Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, and Doug that flew out to North Dakota, all three of them, to sit and have dinner at that diner with Carson Wentz, right? So there are a lot of strange steps that were taken to get to the point where we are now. And I have to wonder, did maybe the lack of cohesive symmetry along the way also lead to this point? Because you mentioned, maybe these four don't work anymore, but those four were not brought together in a very natural manner. It wasn't like everybody was hired in sequence.
Correct. They did go about it in a weird way with the hiring, but it did seem to change after that Super Bowl. It's almost like that Super Bowl was a blessing and a curse. It's, yes, we finally won that Super Bowl. It was awesome. And then the people who were at the top, their heads get a little big. You get excited. You think you have this figured out, and this is who you're going to be. This is the new norm. And it doesn't follow. The results don't follow after that because, well, everybody gets in their own head. They think, well, I won doing this before, so this is how it's going to be. And that's not the case in the NFL. And that is one thing that when I do look at Doug Pederson and the offense that is very vanilla, and when I listen to people who study the tape, I just feel with Doug, he looks at it as this offense worked for me before, so it's going to always work for me. And I just think after years and years of having tape on this offense and seeing the tendencies in his play calling, it's catching up to him a bit. And I feel other coaches are realizing, okay, when Doug Pederson gets in these positions, this is what he's doing, and it's very predictable. And when that happens in a football game, squads know what you're going to do. They just know how you're going to operate, and it gets that much harder.
And it's bizarre to me because Doug played in the NFL for over a decade. He's been coaching in the NFL for a decade now as well. It's like, don't you realize what you're doing? It's almost like he doesn't get it, or is he getting the wrong advice? I don't know what the answer is, but something's got to change there. And Doug placidly admitting, well, maybe I should consider one day handing over the play calling to somebody else. It's almost like, dude, you've been in the league now for 20 years between a player and a coach. You haven't figured out that maybe if I keep calling the same thing, someone's going to figure it out. And the same thing with Wentz, by the way. Remember we were told Wentz supposed to have this high football IQ. He's so smart. He's the smartest quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, right? All this blah, blah, blah. And now Wentz can't figure it out. It just feels so strange that these two supposedly really smart football guys don't know football all of a sudden.
No doubt about it. And look, I look at this run game, right? And I look at Miles Sanders, and I feel it's very criminal the way that they utilize him. You want to hear some crazy numbers about the run game with Doug Pederson? So we all knew that Andy Reid did not run the ball enough, and we would scream that he would need to run the ball. Well, Reuben Frank put up an amazing article on NBC Sports Philadelphia breaking down the numbers. So when Andy Reid was here 14 years, the pass-run ratio was 58-42. Okay, so a little extreme. Doug Pederson this season is at 65-35 pass-run ratio. Andy Reid this season is 62-38, and that's with Pat Mahomes as your quarterback. And I don't think it's ironic that only the Bears, which that offense is abysmal, is at a higher rate than the Eagles right now at 67-33. So you look at the pass run ratio, and I know that's something that gets stressed a lot, and I feel it gets annoying. It's similar to the whole, the only reason you won the Super Bowl was Frank Reich. Well, I think that there's something in what Frank Reich brought, but I don't think it's as obnoxious as what people say. And I feel the same with the run game. It's like, I'm not banging that you got to run it like it's 1970, but this is, it's unfathomable, Josh. It really is.
It's just so strange. And I don't have a good explanation for it because I don't know everything that's going on in the building. I feel like if it wasn't for COVID and all the protocols, and if we had media in the building, we'd be way more informed about what's going on because it's weird that every time Wentz walks off the field, Pederson doesn't talk to him. But every time Hurts walks off the field, Pederson talks to him. So now you're leaving that open to interpretation. Doug's strange answers. leaves that open interpretation. And by the way, you mentioned the pass run ratio, which I'm glad you brought up. Miles Sanders has been used way differently this year than last year. Remember, he was top 10 in the NFL in all-purpose yards, right? This year, he's nowhere near that category, but he happens to be top 12 in the NFL in yards per touch. And before this year, Doug Pederson got his running backs more involved between running and passing than Andy Reid. This year, it's been flipped extremely. They're barely using the running backs this year. It's almost like Doug has completely forgotten how to be a play caller.
Now, I don't want to blow this out of proportion on how I feel Miles Sanders can be utilized. So I definitely want to make that statement from the jump. So I'm not saying to the same level as this person I'm about to compare him to, but keep it in mind, this is the style I think he can benefit from in an offense. Alvin Kamara, can you see Miles Sanders used in that way? I'm not saying to that level, to that greatness, but in that style, because that's how I feel he can be used if you use Miles Sanders' skill set to your offense.
I would say 100% yes, and I'll take it further than you said. I think he can be that level. I think he has that skill set. We saw it last year and in flashes this year. I think Kamara, he gets hyped a little bit because he is so central to the Saints offense. I think Miles Sanders can be central to the Eagles offense because you look at the Saints offense, their offense is built around Kamara and Mike Thomas. You're telling me the Eagles can't do a similar setup with Miles Sanders and Travis Fulgham? We saw it for a couple games, did we not?
Yeah, I'll take a step back with the Fulgham thing because I do think there's two factors. It's not ironic that Alshon Jeffrey comes back. His snaps get limited to about 50%, which is the lowest you've seen. So Alshon coming back is definitely playing a role. But I also do feel to an extent that was more of an exciting 4 games, and that's truly who he is. Now, I think he's better than what you've seen over the last 2 games, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if we can go to the level of, hey, Kamara and Michael Thomas, Fulgham, Miles Sanders. I do think that there's a little bit of reality coming into play on top of everything else. I think he's better than what you've seen, though, over the last 2 games. I will admit that.
He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Filling in for Mike Gill. Mike will be back with a full 2 to 6 show tomorrow. We are on until 3:40 today when the Steelers and the Ravens kick off. Let's hit the text board, Hunter, at 609-403-0973, theplaysugarhouse.com. Text board, place your legal sports bets at playsugarhouse.com. Sign up now and they'll match your first deposit up to $250. Must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, 609-403-0973, theplaysugarhouse.com. Text board. Nick from Brigantine says, I have a thought. Do you think the Eagles have too many players at the end of their careers and at the beginning of their careers, not enough guys in between?
I think there's something to be said about, these older guys and the contracts. I mean, we stress Alshon and Deshaun a lot because you paid them money and they're at the back end of their career. They're getting banged up. They're not being productive for you. So we talk about them a lot. And yeah, I mean, I do think that this team has a lot of those veteran players. Here's the difference, though. I feel with some of the younger guys, if you picked better talent, then it might not feel as bad because I think that there's value in having a Fletcher Cox at this point of his career still, and Brandon Graham and some of these older players, Darius Slay. I think there's definitely value in having some of these older guys on the back end of their career, no doubt. But when you mix in younger talent that can perform at a higher level, it feels different than it does right now.
It definitely feels differently, but I understand where he's coming from. When the Eagles won the Super Bowl, it felt like a lot of guys were either in their prime or getting into their prime, right? Whereas now it feels like you have more guys either before or after their prime. And it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but I do think a lot of times when you see teams, for example, win the Super Bowl or win the World Series, it's because there's a balance in the roster, right? And I think there could be something said for right now that maybe there is an imbalance in the Eagles roster.
That's fair, no doubt. And you need You need to get more production from some of your drafted players. And I know Miles Sanders is a factor. Dallas Goedert is a factor. And you can talk about the linemen, that they do a good job at finding some of these linemen late, no doubt about it. You really are getting no impact, though, from your most recent draft class. And I'm really underwhelmed with Jalen Reagor to this point, and I get it. He battled injury, and I'm not giving up on him because I feel – let me ask you this. If Sean McVay had Jalen Reagor, do you think that you would see more out of him? And I know the difference is Jared Goff is throwing the football to his receivers. Carson Wentz is struggling to do that, and I can't pretend that that's not a part of the equation. But I just feel that if Jalen Reagor was in Sean McVay's offense, you would see a different style. I'm underwhelmed with what I've seen out of him to this point, though, bearing the injuries and not giving up on him, but you need more.
Look, you're right. If he was in Sean McVay's offense, he would be used way more. He'd be used in that Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods role where he's moving all over the field, throwing on shifts, doing misdirections. He's got guys picking for him. He'd absolutely be used a lot better. But I would also say, you mentioned about Goff and McVay. This is the part of the problem I have with the Eagles. I think there's too much on Carson Wentz's plate. You know, in the Rams offense, McVay is in Goff's ear the entire time until the 12 seconds cutoff, right? So he's telling him, I see this. Here's the protection you got to make. Here's the shift that's got to be done. If you watched the Hard Knocks this year, McVay was talking about, you know, how they have a lot of predetermined looks in their offense. And a lot of Goff's throws are anticipation. They're not see it and throw it throws. So as a result, a lot of Goff's accuracy is because the offense builds in that accuracy. Whereas the Eagles, Hunter, is opposite. It's way too much allowing Wentz to ad-lib and have freedom, and there's not enough built-in accuracy, built-in anticipation. There is not enough saying, Wentz, this is the way the play is run. There is almost no flexibility here. Now, you could say that hurts the Rams because that's why they lost the Super Bowl, because the Rams offense had no answers when they had ad-lib outside the offense. But there has to be a happy medium between I'm telling you what to do and you have the keys to the kingdom. Go drive the Porsche off the bridge.
Right, and especially because they are two different quarterbacks. Carson Wentz, I would say, before this season, one of his best strengths is he's able to adapt on the fly and make these plays, these special plays happen just because that's who he is. He is that type of playmaker. He'll escape the pocket. He'll extend the plays. That is part of who he is. So if you told Wentz prior to this season, this is what you have to do and this is the play you're going to make, I don't think you get the same version at quarterback. But now it's gotten so ugly to the point where I think implementing that into the game plan isn't necessarily a bad thing because he's overthinking and he's putting a lot of pressure on himself. He needs to dial it back a bit. And that's where I look at the coaching side of things. And you need to put your players in the best position possible. That's something that maybe you can implement. Now, I don't think that they would do it because I feel at this point it would already be done. How much worse can it get before it triggers your brain and you're forced to do something like that? I don't know. I don't see them going down that path. But at this point, you got to consider something. You got to consider change. That's the problem. I feel they are constantly rolling out the same thing every week, expecting it to be different. And that's not going to be the case.
Let's get a couple more texts in here at 609-403-0973 on the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. Dan EHC says, as bad as things are with the Eagles, it's most likely still coming down to the last two games for the division. He's not wrong because, let's be realistic, do we have a ton of faith that the Cowboys and the Washington football team are really going to pull away from the Eagles? And by the way, the Giants, it's going to be Colt McCoy this weekend. That really gets your confidence going in the Giants right now.
This might be an unpopular opinion. I don't know. Maybe not. I just can't think about the division at all right now. I couldn't care less about the division, who's going to win it, what the Cowboys are doing, what's going on in Washington with that front four, the Giants and Joe Judge. I can't think about any of that because it's such a dumpster fire here internally that until that's fixed, I don't care about the division. Maybe that's unpopular. Maybe it's in the majority. I don't know. But the division is so far out of my thought process, it's unbelievable.
609-403-0973 to playsugarhouse.com. Text where Pete and Vineland chimes in and says, look at the four franchises that had the most success over the last 20 years. The Patriots, Steelers, and Colts. Strong front offices, no meddling from the owners. There's a reason those four teams basically have owned the last 20 years. There's one thing Pete didn't add, though, there, Hunter, in that text, and that is stability at the coaching position. Mike Tomlin and Bill Belichick are two of the longest tenured coaches in the league. Pete Carroll's been there a decade with the Seahawks. Between Tony Dungy, Jim Caldwell, they had a sustained success of stability with Peyton Manning. By the way, Tony Dungy wasn't fired. He just retired. So that's why Jim Caldwell had to take over. So to me, don't forget the fact that you need the head coach stability there as well to have success.
I always go back and forth in my head with this, though. And I don't know the answer. But is Jeffrey Lurie stepping in because Doug Pederson can't do it and isn't successful doing it on his own? Or are we having the issues because Jeffrey Lurie is stepping in, if that makes sense? Like, did the issues happen because Doug decided to do things and Jeffrey Lurie was like, we can't allow this guy to keep doing this because he's screwing things up. I need to step in. Or are we having these issues because Lurie is stepping in over Doug Pederson? Does that make sense?
Well, look, if he doesn't trust his head coach, then maybe he shouldn't be the head coach then.
That's a very fair point. No doubt about it. You got to get someone in here if you're the owner that you truly believe in. But I think he's torn, just like a lot of us are who are upset with Doug. The guy did win a Super Bowl, so you can't pretend that doesn't matter. At the same time, unsatisfied over the last handful of years. How do you balance that?
Listen, I had somebody, and I don't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday on game night, text in this idea to me. They said the Eagles should fire Doug Pederson, make Jim Schwartz the head coach, and hire a high-level offensive coordinator to basically invert the coaching staff. Let the head coach be the defensive guy and the coordinator run the offense.
I don't think you're going to see that happen. And look, I'm a huge Schwartzman. I'm a fan of the Schwartz. Not as a head coach, though. I love him as a D coordinator. I don't think he has the personality in today's game to be that style of head coach. And with the nature of how the game's going, you know, I know that there's defensive coaches out there. Don't get me wrong, but the offensive coach seems to be the hot item. So I just don't see that happening at all, and I wouldn't prefer it.
Hey, man, what about, look, I would say this. Jim Schwartz was one of only two coaches in the last 20 years that get the Lions into the postseason. That's got to count for something, right?
That's true. No doubt. There's not many people that go there and succeed to any sort of level, so that is fair. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit, but I don't know if that would be my first option. I wouldn't say I'd scream, rant, and rage, although could you imagine this city if Jim Schwartz became head coach? They can't even stand him now as D coordinator. And how funny is this, Josh? You don't hear a peep about him anymore. Look, he puts together 4 great games, has a stinker. 4 great games, has a stinker. 3 good games, has a stinker. But those stinkers stick out to this city like no other. It cracks me up.
He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, the text board is open, 609-403-0973. Plus, we will get to some anytime hotline calls. The people were really vocal. We got to react to those as well coming up on the show. Plus, Jason Fitz, ESPN radio host, coming up at 3 o'clock to talk more about the Eagles, the NFL, college football, and more here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea City.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig here, filling in for Mike Gill alongside Hunter Brody here in the Matt Black Kia studios here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get back to your text in just a moment at 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. But Broads, we're going to be leading people up to Steelers versus Ravens at 3:40, and then Gonzaga, West Virginia tonight at 7 o'clock on 97.3 ESPN.
Absolutely, and you can make a ton of cash by betting on those games using the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Now, DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you $1,000 when signing up using promo code 973. You have a ton of action today. You have a ton of action throughout the week. And then don't forget, obviously, about college football and the NFL on the weekend. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code 973. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey. Only gambling problem. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Get back to these texts before we get to the Anytime Hotline calls here. 609-403-0973. Texter chimes in and says, Doug Pederson is having a bad year for sure, but we've been in the playoffs 3 straight years and won a Super Bowl. If anybody should get fired, it's the guy who drafts terribly, who picked J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Jalen Reagor over DK Metcalf and Justin Jefferson. I am so glad this text came in. I'm so glad, Hunter, because I've been seeing all the people commenting on Twitter about what John Clayton said yesterday on the Sports Bash with you and Mike Gill. And I got a bone to pick with everybody. A bone to pick. How do you know for sure that Howie Roseman was the guy banging the table for J. Jaw and Reagor? You have no evidence. You weren't in the room. How do you know that it wasn't Jeffrey Lurie, or it wasn't a year ago Joe Douglas, or this year Andy Weidel? How do we know it wasn't the wonderful wide receiver coach who they just hired? How do we know that it wasn't somebody else? People act like Howie Roseman is responsible for every move this team has ever made. Because first of all, if that's the case, he deserves credit for the other moves that were made. There's no guarantee that he was the one who said draft J-Jaw and Reagor. And by the way, there's a reason why Metcalf wasn't drafted, because there were teams that ruled him off their board because of a neck issue in the past. And by the way, you know who passed over him twice before they drafted him? The Seahawks. So this idea that, oh, it's the guy who drafted these guys, but you don't know all the details. It's not like this is Howie Roseman's thiefdom and he's ruling with, this is not Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones running the organization with an iron fist. I don't even know how much Howie Roseman even has a final say in some of these decisions, because I know for a fact, according to people like Jeff Mosher and Adam Kaplan and others that cover the Eagles, that there is a lot of voices that go into the decisions that are made on the draft.
I agree with you completely. I am a little torn, though, because I'm with you. Look, and right now, specifically, we are hearing that the owner is involved with a lot of decisions. So I can't pretend that doesn't matter. Absolutely, that matters. It's similar to with the 76ers. Everyone screamed at Elton Brand for those contracts, and we learned he barely had much say at all, if any. So he's just in the GM chair. Now, to counter my own point here, I think Howie Roseman has a lot more say than Elton Brand did. But I do feel that ownership is so heavily involved, you do have to question who makes the final decisions on some of these picks. But with Howie, why I'm torn is I think you need to factor that into the equation. At the same time, I do feel like Howie Roseman, it's such a big sample size. With Elton Brand, it was 1 year of those bad contracts. Okay, here, I just feel like there's such a big sample size that I do need to look at Howie, knowing that he does have reasonable say. It's not like he has no say. He does have reasonable say and does have a bigger voice in this organization, where when you look at these draft picks as of late, I can't pretend that he doesn't have some sort of voice as well.
And look, I see the one texter saying that Jalen Reagor was a terrible pick, blah, blah, blah. Few experts had him as a first rounder. Look, we don't know what Reagor is going to be yet. You can't rule on a guy after year one of his career.
Not even year one, Josh. He's played like a handful of games.
Well, that's true, too. He hasn't even played 16 games. He won't play 16 games until next year. Give me 32 games to evaluate a guy, right? I need more time. And to say that Reagor was a bad pick is ignorant because of the fact that, let's be realistic, how many times has Reagor been open and Wentz hasn't thrown him the ball? There's been numerous people from Greg Cosell, to Brian Baldinger, to Dan Orlovsky, who all put on their little, their tape film, look, Reagor's open, but Wentz won't throw him the ball. What if Wentz threw Reagor the ball every time he was open and Reagor catches it? Is he still a terrible pick who can't separate and get open?
I would say, no, that is not the case. I am a little underwhelmed with some areas of his game, considering we were informed that he'd be this big speed threat and he'd really stretch the field. And I'm not saying that he doesn't at all, but you did see that he struggled a bit with the separation from the line of scrimmage. And knowing that was supposed to be his strong suit, that's what concerns me a bit. I'm underwhelmed with some things that I've seen, but to write him off completely, I don't think that that's fair. I think he might be a receiver that, hey, maybe you got to scheme this guy open a bit and let him work in space, and that might be the best version of the kid. It does feel a little underwhelming, though, to see a speed threat struggle against this type of passing defense, though.
I'm underwhelmed by the people who keep saying that Reagor is a bad pick.
Yeah, it's way too early to say that he's some bad pick. It just sucks that you're watching Justin Jefferson tear apart teams. And you remember the conversations at the draft. He's only a slot guy. Well, the Eagles don't need a slot guy. Well, it turns out he can do a lot more than just play in the slot.
Yeah, but the other thing with Justin Jefferson is if he was drafted by the Eagles, he's not doing what he's doing in Minnesota. Jefferson is hands down the most targeted rookie receiver this year. He has been targeted 72 times this year. That's a lot over 11 games. He's not getting targeted 72 times with the Eagles. So for me, just because he's having a good year one place, you mentioned earlier if Jalen Reagor was on the Rams, how different would he be? I guarantee you he'd have a lot more touches in the Rams offense. Part of the problem is the offense and the quarterback. Doug Pederson is not play calling to put these receivers in the best position to be successful. And the quarterback, with his sloppy mechanics, stubborn play, and ego between him and Pederson that is larger than the state of California between the two of them, is getting in the way of this team's success on offense. So I can't blame the receivers when the play caller and the quarterback can't do their jobs.
If Doug Pederson did give up play calling, would you be interested in seeing Deuce call some plays? Because I know Torrey Smith is being loud on Twitter about it, giving this guy a chance. But here's the thing. You have Rich Gangarello. You have others who have done it before. Would you go to a guy who has never done it in his coaching experience? And to be fair, I don't think that changing the play caller is instantly going to result in this obnoxious amount of success, but I just think it needs some sort of freshening up because this clearly isn't working. So, my question really is, would you be interested in Deuce?
I would be interested because of his title. We are told, according to his title, that he is the assistant head coach and run game coordinator, that he is the one who handles what running back is on the field at what time. So that in and of itself suggests that he is intricately and intimately involved in the game planning. So to me, I would love to see what his angle on the offense would be because of his role. The problem with Scangarello is his title suggests that he is not as directly involved in the offense on game day than Deuce is. So personally, I would like to see Deuce get the play calling because I think he's more involved than people realize.
Do you think you'd see a 65% pass, 35% run ratio?
No. But I also don't think you'd also see a 65 for run either. I don't think Deuce is an idiot. I don't think he's going to go out there and say, let's run the ball down their throat. Back in my day, we ran the ball 40 times. I don't think he's going to do that either.
I do think it's interesting, though, that somehow with the limited amount of snaps that Miles Sanders got last game, Corey Clement slides in there with a carry. It's like you have this guy in Miles Sanders with 6 carries, yet you're finding a carry for Corey Clement. To me, that blows my mind. It really does. I honestly can't comprehend the run game side of things, knowing and admitting that Miles Sanders is your positive so far this season. And I know that people don't like to hear this, but if I'm a coach and I see that Carson Wentz thrives when he rolls to the right, the fact that in my game plan, I call it one time, I can't comprehend that. That bothers me. It irks me. I don't need it to happen every single play, but one time in your game plan where it is designed to roll him out. And oh, by the way, every time we mention this, it's a gain of 17. It's a gain of 20 plus. It's a gain of 22 in the very limited options. And that's not going to happen every play, may I add. But the success is there. I don't know how you don't see that and call it just a little bit more. I'm asking for 4 or 5 plays, Josh. Does it blow your mind as much as it blows mine?
It makes me shake my head a lot, that's for sure. He's Hunter Brody. Follow him on Twitter at Broads81. I'm Josh Hennig. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Hennig. That's Josh Hennig on Twitter, filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, leading you up to Ravens and Steelers kickoff at 3:40 here on 97.3 ESPN. Still to come, anytime hotline calls, and Jason Fitz, ESPN radio host, co-host of Spain and Fitz here, 7 to 9 on 97.3 ESPN. The 2 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash being brought to you by Recovery Centers of America Drug and Alcohol Addiction Treatment Centers located in Mays Landing, New Jersey, and Devon, PA.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Welcome back into the Sports Bash. Still to come, Jason Fitz, ESPN radio host, co-host of Spain and Fitz, among other things, on ESPN radio and ESPN digital platforms. We do have got some anytime hotline calls to get to at 609-403-0973. The text, we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. We're here till 3:40 kickoff for Steelers and Ravens today on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig along with Hunter Brody. You ready to react to some of these anytime hotlines?
Of course. They're always fun.
Wentz struggled, the O-line struggled. Everybody on that side of the ball struggled. But what I really wanted to bring up to you was, could this defense please get just one f***ing interception? Please. My goodness. I wait for it every week. Still hasn't happened. Obviously, the defense played well tonight, but I just want to hear your thoughts, man.
Other thoughts?
I'll be honest with you. Yeah, Darius Slay and DK Metcalf, that's a conversation from the defensive side. Derek Barnett on a couple 4th down stops, that was a defensive conversation you can have. But when I watch that game, I think what I am thinking about in my brain, not having interceptions falls 10,000 on my list.
Yeah, I'm not exactly moved by the interception. Would I like to see more turnovers? Sure, but I would also like to see the offense actually score some points.
No doubt. This offense looks miserable. The last thing I'm thinking about is a turnover by the defense. They held you in. They held you in all game long. Now, you can specifically look at Slay and Metcalf and point at fingers or whatever. At the end of the day, that defense kept you in the game.
Let's get another hotline call in here.
Fan War from South Philly, man. Man, I had to cut the game off, man. There was no need to watch it with 5-6 minutes left in the quarter. Can you just start promoting the Sixers, man? We just need to move on from this. It's not healthy for us.
I mean,
wow.
that guy's ready to just move on from the Eagles. He's done. He's checked out.
Can you turn the game off with 5 or 6 minutes left? I can't do that.
I've never done that. I
can't do that.
Once I'm stuck in a game, I'm stuck, for better or worse.
No doubt. Although, look, Doc Rivers speaking, you're hearing Shake Milton talk, you're hearing some of the people start talking. I'm not going to lie, the juices are flowing a bit for some 76ers hoops.
I think my juices will flow more once I see them actually play one of the preseason games. You know what I mean? I need a little initiation first.
That's true. By the way, I did see a quote about Korkmaz maybe being a big part of this team. Wait until he actually sees them play.
Let's get a couple more of these anytime hotline calls here.
Wentz, trash. Pederson, the play calls, trash. Jeffrey, trash. The entire team, trash. It's time to give Hurts a shot. I'm tired of watching Wentz struggle every single week. This is just infuriating to watch. And I know Pederson has just been as brutal this season, but something has to change here. I'm just speechless. He got Metcalf on the sideline with the biggest smile about being the Eagles, and this is a defense Wentz should have torched today with how bad the Seahawks have been defensively all year.
So, first of all, can we just touch on the Hurts thing? And I think this is interesting. I've heard now multiple former NFL players, offensive and defensive, say that they're not sure if Hurts is ready to play or not because he didn't have an offseason. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe that's the real reason why we're not seeing him more, is because maybe he's not as up to speed in the playbook as we would like.
There's got to be a reason, Josh. I mean, there just has to be, because if you look at Carson Wentz's play, this is benchable football. And I think it dives deeper than just, we paid this guy, he's our quarterback technically because of the contract, so we need to stay with him. I think it has to do with how they feel about Jalen Hurts as well. It's the only thing that makes sense, because what you are seeing on the field, you're not putting the best product out there with Carson Wentz right now with the way he's playing right now. So why is that the case? Well, it's got to be Jalen Hurts is not ready. And there's a reason why that play after the throw was another read option with Carson Wentz at wide receiver, right? I mean, there's got to be a reason why they try and shove that down everyone's throats.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is, but there has to be a reason. I just don't have it right now because, again, I think because there's nobody in the building in terms of media and stuff, we don't have all the insights and information we usually would have. You know, Scott Grayson, for example, he used to travel with the team. He would travel to London with the team, for goodness sake. You know, like that's how, embedded he was. There's nobody embedded. So we're kind of just like, well, I hope to get somebody to give me a little bit of clarity, and it's like, I'm not getting it. He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig over here screaming here on 97.3 ESPN. Still to come, Jason Fitz, ESPN radio host, along with, we'll get some more anytime hotline calls and your text at 609-403-0973 will lead you up to 3:40 kickoff, Ravens and Steelers right here on 97.3 ESPN, your home for Eagles football and the NFL playoffs all year long. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill, along with Hunter Brody here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Only 95-minute show today as we lead you up to Steelers versus Ravens here on 97.3 ESPN. Counting down to that, they're actually going to have a game today after they postponed it not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. NFL Week 12 finishes on a Wednesday afternoon thanks to COVID-19 protocols and a tree lighting ceremony.
Now, did I get my that's pretty funny, by the way. We'll readdress that in a second. Did I get my tweet correct? Because I felt like I screwed it up. So the way I tweeted our show out today, Josh Hennig and I will lead you into Thursday Night Football. That was changed to Monday Night Football. I know I guess I skipped that Sunday afternoon action. Tuesday Night Football after the Monday night, and now here we are at Wednesday. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you skipped Sunday.
So there was a Sunday involved, and Monday and Tuesday. They did try all 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable. And here we are, Wednesday afternoon. And it's funny that the ceremony is what's making this afternoon game. Football getting disrespected a bit. What do you think?
Well, there's 2 reasons why it's happening, and I kind of wish the people involved who were tweeting out the news would have been a little more informative, so I decided a little digging on my own. I didn't know this until this week. Did you know that the annual Rockefeller tree lighting Christmas show on NBC is one of the highest grossing programming elements on television for NBC?
Interesting.
So apparently it's like the way it delineates is like NFL is their number 1 moneymaker, right?
Yep.
And SNL is number 2. Apparently this Rockefeller thing is number 3. And I'm like, how is that even possible? Like, it's that, I didn't know a tree lighting ceremony that's been going on for 88 years was that popular.
I guess it's sort of like those parades where you just have it on in the background, where you have people there, you just watch it. It's sort of like that, I guess, where people just have it on background, not really paying too much attention. But because it's on these national networks, this national network, it gets a lot of ratings, right? I mean, that's the only way. I can't imagine people intensely sitting down, amped up, grabbing the popcorn and the cold ones, watching this thing, although maybe I'm wrong.
Well, supposedly it's a big deal because Dolly Parton's performing and Kelly Clarkson and a bunch of other people are performing at it. I don't remember the whole list. Schefter tweeted out a few days ago. I just recognized a couple of names. But, yeah, apparently it's a big deal. So the NFL was told to kick back and relax. Now, my question is, though, how many times does Tirico have to do live air promo reads promoting the Rockefeller tree lighting thing tonight during the broadcast?
I bet you there's an over-under somewhere, no? Don't you think? You can find betting on anything these days. You could probably bet the ceremony somehow.
Yeah, maybe you bet do they start from the bottom or the top or the lights, like something like that, like
How long it takes the whole tree to light up?
Right, like does it take 3 seconds, 6 seconds? I don't know. I feel like I'm so like every year there's New Year's, right? And we all have our traditions where we're either hanging with friends or we're by ourselves drinking a bunch of adult beverages or whatever your situation is, and we have the television on somewhere, right? And we all see the ball drop on one of the 2,000 networks on television. I get that. I've never been the person who's like, I gotta sit down and watch a tree be lit. Like, it just doesn't do anything for me.
I'm totally watching college hoops instead. By the way, I need to throw this out there. I am starting to really, really, really be impacted by the lack of fans when it comes to sports. So I'm curious how my thoughts will be when the Sixers come around, even though I just talked about how excited I am for them. Last night, I watched Duke and Michigan State, and I watched the second game as well between Kansas and Kentucky. But the empty Cameron Indoor Stadium had such a big impact on the product that I was watching where I questioned if I should change the channel. It was that bad for me. And look, I understand the circumstances, what we're going through, and I should be happy that basketball is at least on the TV, but it really hurt the product for me last night.
Well, I think it's a horrible take by you, but we'll ask somebody who knows a lot about this stuff. That's Jason Fitz, ESPN Radio, Spain and Fitz, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9, except for tonight on 97.3 ESPN. The Jimmy V Classic is tonight here on 97.3 ESPN Radio. Jason, always glad to have you back on the show. Happy Thanksgiving, my friend.
Happy Thanksgiving to you guys, too. Really, I always look forward to coming on. It's always a blast. So, hope you guys had a great holiday, and it's good. I heard the take on Cameron, and look, it feels weird, it feels strange, but we got used to it in every other sport. That's all I'll say. But I will say that Michigan State did a better job in their games earlier this year by having some sort of backdrop to all of it. I'm a little surprised whenever I see a broadcast that doesn't look well thought out in that sense. And so I think college basketball will figure that out over time. I hope they'll figure it out, but I just hope they get the dang games played.
I think it's just a bad take by Hunter because of the fact that it tells me that obviously the environment of the game matters more to him than the actual game. Bro,
well, to be fair, it's a big part of why we enjoy sports, right? The atmosphere, the crowd. I went back and I watched 2009. Listen to this ridiculousness. I went back and watched 2009 Game 7 Red Wings Penguins all the way through 2 nights ago, and I couldn't believe the atmosphere. I had goosebumps.
I love atmosphere, but also has it not been cool, like hearing the adjustments of the line in NFL games? Like, I do think that there's a little element that what the NFL, for all we continually trash the NFL for everything they do. Well, they managed to find a way as a sport to broadcast these games in a way where you don't feel the lack of crowd in most of the shots. You don't necessarily feel the strangeness of the environment. And by the way, they've gotten the games played. So I think that while you're right, yes, the minute I was walking through the halls at ESPN the other day, and there's a picture of the women's soccer team with the crowd behind them and everybody celebrating. And I thought about that moment, like how I take for granted how much I miss what it's like to hear the roar of a crowd on a touchdown. But I'm still going to say, hey, given what we were talking about this summer, I'll take whatever lameness we get out of experience of watching it if it means we get actual games.
Speaking of actual games, we're going to have the Steelers and Ravens kicking off today at 3:40. We talked about this before you came on. Thanks to the Rockefeller tree lighting ceremony. And apparently, Jason, NBC, they make some of their most money per year in this order: NFL, SNL, and lighting up a tree for Christmas.
Hey, you know what? 5 years ago today, I played the Rockefeller tree lighting ceremony. So I'm a little biased to it. I did it when I was in the music business. We did the experience on it. I was stunned as somebody that has played that tree lighting experience. I am stunned that they didn't move things around for the NFL because we all know Sunday Night Football and what it means for ratings for ABC. So the fact that it's already been moved to Wednesday is a statement in and of itself. I think this has to have a lot to do with sort of the powers that be and everybody sitting there saying, hey,
We don't want the perception that we put off this event. And the other side of it is when it comes to the Rockefeller with the tree lighting, there are so many music acts and so many entertainment acts involved. I would just imagine that for NBC, it's a bit of a nightmare to go back to everybody and say, okay, we're going to delay by a day because for any of those performers that are live in that moment, they may not be able to. So, it's a tricky situation for NBC to be in, but I'm stunned that a tree lighting takes priority over the football game.
Well, maybe they should have just recorded it like the Dallas Cowboys did with Kane Brown. I mean, I never heard of Kane Brown before that thing, and I went and added some of his music to my Spotify list after that. I didn't care that he was recorded. I mean, you're telling me that Dolly Parton couldn't have recorded whatever she's doing tonight?
I mean, some of it is pre-recorded every year because they can't put that many acts on at once. So they actually have a crowd, for every year. They have a crowd a day or two before the actual lighting ceremony, and about half the acts perform on a different night, and then it's all spliced together in one special. So, yeah, they absolutely could have done that, but if they were trying to, and I don't even know who's playing it, frankly, this year, but if they've got a big name that they were doing tonight with the crowd, maybe they were concerned that they couldn't move it a day. But I just, to me, it's short-sighted, especially considering that NBC in the past has found a way to broadcast things on other networks. Like, I'm just a little surprised that they felt that it was a bigger win to put it on, in the middle of the afternoon on a Wednesday. The numbers are going to be terrible on that thing.
Yeah, it's going to be totally bizarre. Jason Fitz joining us, Spain and Fitz, here on 97.3 ESPN 7 to 9, Monday through Friday. Jason Fitz also has the Rankings Reaction Show presented by Cheez-It. I was watching you guys last night, and I am 100% on board with your conspiracy theories for the college football playoff because it's an embarrassment that they think that a 2-loss Georgia and a 2-loss Iowa State are so much better than some of these other teams. They just keep kicking BYU down the list, and they keep kicking these other schools in the face. It's like they just don't really respect the fact that, oh, yeah, you have to win games.
Well, and that's the most stunning part to me. Like, losses matter to me. I mean, I don't want to be oversimplified here, but losses matter. And then even if you want to apply the eye test, I think that BYU could beat Georgia on a neutral field. I mean, I would challenge anybody that hasn't watched BYU or is just hearing about the hype now, go back and watch. They have a mobile quarterback that is going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. They have an offensive line, as Joe Luke Jr. pointed out last night, that is playing better than anybody's given them credit for. They are electric. They can score on anybody, including that Georgia defense. And last time I checked, that Georgia offense has been absolutely awful at times over the course of this. So I'm not going to look at it and say, well, now they've changed quarterbacks, and suddenly that means they're a top 10 team. I mean, if that's the case, if we're only going to go by the eye test, then what's the justification in putting Ohio State at 4? If they're going to turn around and say, well, they haven't played enough games, then why are they going to then tell Georgia that, oh, okay, I mean, you played games, but the losses don't really count? I mean, it feels like the committee is constantly chasing its own tail on how it analyzes this stuff. And the Iowa State thing really bothers me. How do you jump up 4 spots in the poll with the playoff committee when you barely beat a Texas team that isn't any good? I mean, it's just that makes no sense to me at all.
I hate to be the negative guy today, but another thing that's really hurt me with these sports, even though I understand I should be appreciative that they're at least playing these games, well, most of the teams, but the college football playoff and the way that they normally do it is already controversial as it is. To add this element of not enough games and what's happening here and this team canceled, it's hard to really follow, what's really going down and who has the edge on some of these teams because you don't know what squads are going to play each weekend. And with that being said, what are your thoughts on this whole Michigan situation where maybe they're doing this on purpose so Ohio State can't get in?
I mean, the thing of it is, everybody, we had a conference call today to prep one of our shows that we do every Saturday, Countdown to Game Day. And I got sort of chided by some of the people there because I've echoed the same thing that Herbie said. I mean, it makes total sense to me. If you're Harbaugh and you're looking at, hey, do I really want to put guys at risk? This team has not been particularly good this year. We all know it. Do we really want to go out and get our butts kicked by Ohio State when there is a COVID-19 risk? Now, we'll sit this one out. Like, I can make those dots connect. And, so I don't think it's a far-fetched theory at all. And Ohio State at this point needs everybody to play nice with them. So that's difficult to do. I mean, we've already seen Florida State decide that they weren't comfortable playing against Clemson because Clemson had somebody that was positive on the team playing. So why can we just suddenly presume that Michigan State and Michigan wouldn't do the same thing? So I don't think it's clear and simple. The problem with this process in its entirety could be solved one way, and it's what the committee refuses to do. Frankly, if they put every single committee member up on a stage afterwards with the microphone in front of them, made them talk about who they voted for and why, and be transparent about their process, it would end all of this.
They'll never do that because we all know at the end of the day, the secrecy is what allows them to hide behind some of their decisions. It's kind of like when you have someone get nominated for any award. It's like that's why I love the Baseball Hall of Fame process. It's like some of these guys have to come out and admit, oh, I voted for this person. But most of these votes, nobody actually gets up and admits who they voted for or didn't vote for, Jason.
Yeah, well, and I hate that. I mean, and you're right. I mean, I've made the point before that the committee should speak, and everybody always says, hey, I wouldn't have a job if the committee spoke because I couldn't react to things if they just answered a bunch of questions. So I hear that, and I love getting the work done. I love covering college football, but this year more than ever, we just need some level of transparency.
Let's transition to the NFL. I want to get your current thoughts on this Philadelphia Eagles team as they fall on Monday Night Football to the Seattle Seahawks. The Carson Wentz drama, the Doug Pederson drama, the Howie Roseman drama continues. What's your overall thoughts on this team now as we speak?
This has got to be the most stunning thing we've seen in a long time in the NFL. And I genuinely mean that, not just because I'm talking to you guys. To see a quarterback, and look, everybody knows my Raiders fandom, but one of the reasons that I constantly said, hey, I believe Derek Carr can win in this league is because I've seen it happen before. When you see a quarterback play at a very, very high level, then you think, okay, I know they've got it in them. So now it's up to the coaching staff to find that opportunity to do it. One of the things that has really stunned me, when I talk to analysts that watch all of this and they keep talking about the play calling, like where has the creativity been? But also, where's that pocket play is what I like to call it. Like where you've got, hey, my quarterback's got no rhythm. I got to help him get into it. So I'm going to get him, just like a jump shooter, I'm going to get him that one thing that I know he's really comfortable with. Like that has never happened throughout the course of the year. And I understand that everybody's saying it's everybody else's fault, that you could turn around and say, hey, there's a quarterback issue. Well, the quarterback can say there's a coaching issue, and then everybody can say there's not enough talent around him. But how did we get here so fast from a team that was expected to be very good this year? And guys, I have a real problem with anytime you're trying to work this out. That's genuinely what they're trying to do. Work it out. I have a problem with giving Jalen Hurts more reps. As much as I love Jalen in college, at some point, the message you just sent to Carson Wentz is that it's Carson Wentz's problem. And so Carson's looking at the coaching staff like they're a bunch of traitors now, and the coaching staff's trying to blame Carson Wentz, and everybody's protecting themselves. So realistically, because of Carson's contract, he's not going anywhere. And everybody else in that building should right now be scared because we have not seen a team go from good to this level of bad unexplainably this fast in a very long time. It's a gross thing for a fan base that deserves better.
So with that being said, do you think it's too quick to fire Doug Pederson, who won a Super Bowl a handful of years? And I think the best way to put it is, do you keep a coach just to keep a coach because he won the Super Bowl? Or does he give you the best possible chance to win another one moving forward? How do you kind of balance those two statements?
If I think there's a better coach on the market, I'd go get him. And to me, this is all about, look, we wouldn't be patient. If Carson Wentz had been the quarterback in that Super Bowl, not Nick Foles, would we suddenly forgive the way he's playing right now? I don't think so. They can't get out of Carson Wentz because of the contract. Every insider I've talked to has said that there's nothing that can happen contractually. He's going to be in Philadelphia. So now that we know that, now you got to look at Howie Roseman and say, okay, why did you do a deal that pinned you in and then turn around and also draft a quarterback in the second round? Like, that makes no sense. I think there needs to be better accountability there. And if we believe the roster isn't good enough, then Howie Roseman should be looking for a job. And then the other side of it is, can anybody that's watched the Eagles this year say, you know what? What's really helped is the coaching has been creative and it's made the best out of a team that maybe wasn't talented enough. I'm not saying that. Are you? So with those two answers, to me, it's clear. Like, you make change, not for the sake of making change. I don't really care if they won a Super Bowl a few years ago. As a Raiders fan, I don't care if John Gruden wins a Super Bowl this year. If in 3 years the team stinks, I want them to do what's best for the team in that moment. And that looks like it's changed because everybody involved in this process has not done the job well enough.
He's Jason Fitz. You can catch him on weeknights, 7 to 9, Spain and Fitz here on 97.3 ESPN, except for tonight because of the Jimmy V Even Invitational. And Jason Fitz joins us as all guests on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Jason, before I let you go, I have one thing to say to you. You having the Matrix 4 as low as you did on your movie list is really, really bad job by you.
You know what? Like, the Matrix 4 is, I can't decide. So I had this moment, like, everybody, I'm a big 80s rock fan. I grew up on Bon Jovi and Guns N' Roses and all that stuff, right? So, like, a few years ago, when Guns N' Roses made their big comeback tour and they were playing stadiums everywhere, I had friends say, "You're going to go?" And I was like, "Man, I don't know. I don't know if I can really handle Fat Axl Rose singing. Like, I don't know if I can handle that in my mind." And so I'm a little afraid. You know, I know that everybody's still involved, but it's been so long. I'm a little afraid that Keanu Reeves, who, is not exactly going to win, a bunch of awards for his acting in the first place, is going to come in and just be a little too Keanu Reeves for me. Like, so I'm scared. I'm nervous about it, but I hear you. I'm nervous about it. Not as nervous as I am about Coming to America 2, which does not need to happen, but at least it made the list.
Well, look, if you have any doubts about if The Matrix 4 can be good, if you haven't, go watch Carrie-Anne Moss play the role she does on the Netflix shows with Jessica Jones and all of them, because her character is fire, and that performance, let alone, gives me hope for Matrix 4.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point. And if at the very least it just lets me rewatch all of this stuff, like, I'm in for it. Like that it may have needed to be a little higher on the list, but my love for Halloween movies just absolutely had to put those at the top.
Yeah, well, that's where you and I separate, because I can do without all the horror movies. They put me to sleep half the time, and I'm more of a sci-fi guy, but that's just me. So, Jason,
we'll find middle ground together. I'll give The Matrix 4 a better chance if you give Halloween Kills a chance. That's all I ask.
As long as I have to go watch Halloween Kills by myself, I'll give it a chance. How about that? I'll compromise there for you.
I'll come up to Philly. We'll do it together. The world will be normal by then.
Yeah, when we get back to normalcy, you'll be like, what are you going to do? Oh, we're going to go watch a movie. And it's like, didn't you already do that the entire pandemic?
Yeah, but we're going to have movie theater popcorn, and that will make it feel better.
Definitely. Every movie is better with movie theater popcorn. We can definitely agree with that. All right, see, we came to a common ground here on a Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN. Jason Fitz, Spade and Fitz, 7 to 9 on 97.3 ESPN. Always appreciate your time, my friend.
You're the best. Have a great week. Appreciate you.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill along with Hunter Brody here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Sports Bash being brought to you by Recovery Centers of America, Drug and Alcohol Addiction Treatment Centers located in Maysland, New Jersey, and Devon, PA. I know Hunter's probably just sitting there shaking his head like this is the most Josh-like conversation to ever be had on the radio.
It's up there. That is just the definition of a Josh discussion. For other people that hear us discuss this all the time, a Josh answer, a Josh list, a Josh this, you just witnessed and heard a Josh conversation.
But it made it better because I had almost a similar person having the conversation with me, so it made it probably more entertaining for you.
See, that is very true. Normally, Gil and I will look at each other and shake our heads because we are acknowledging that this is a Josh moment. You have Fitz encountering this Josh moment because I think he has maybe some Fitz moments as well. It's a good fit for sure.
I would definitely go watch a movie with Fitz when things get back to normal. I think that would be hilarious. We could maybe even do an IG live afterward, and talk about the movie.
Wow, a little review, if you will.
Yeah, why not?
Some Rotten Tomatoes.
Except without the rotten and the tomatoes.
Okay, fair point.
This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get back to your text on the other side, 609-403-0973, as we lead you up to Steelers versus Ravens right here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, where if you're not have the app already, you would have already known that Zach Ertz has been activated from the IR, or the fact of everything that Doc Rivers and Ben Simmons have said the last couple of days for the 76ers. All your Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, Flyers coverage right there on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Now, back to the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig along with Hunter Brody here on 97.3 ESPN. Final segment of the show as we lead you up to Steelers versus Ravens, coming up at 3:40 kickoff here on 97.3 ESPN. The text board is open, as we mentioned, 609-403-0973. And bros, I know there's some opportunities for folks to make some money today with DraftKings thanks to these games going on.
Absolutely. When you sign up, new users sign up, you earn a deposit bonus up to $1,000 when using promo code 973. So what you do is download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app right now, plug in promo code 973 for a chance to earn a sign-up bonus up to $1,000. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
So we'll get to some stuff before we get out of here. First, I want to follow up on what Jason was saying. Jason brought up Derek Carr, Hunter, and I thought that was very interesting because, Carr had a couple of years where he was really rough to watch. And ever since John Gruden got a hold of him, he's actually looked a lot better. You got to give Gruden credit that he found something in Carr that we hadn't seen a couple of years. But that kind of suggests that maybe the problem is the coach and not the quarterback.
The Derek Carr thing is really interesting. I always like to bring him up in terms of conversation with Carson Wentz, and I know people might be saying, what are you talking about? Well, we did have a hell of a season just a few years ago. Then he fell off a bit, and the Raiders team wasn't that good. What year did he have that stellar season? 2017. He had a 20, was it 2017 or I'm trying to look. Oh no, 2016, excuse me. He went 12-3 and he looked like a very solid quarterback and things fell off a bit. And now he's sort of resurfacing. I just wonder, are you seeing maybe a path that Carson Wentz can go down where, okay, you have this stellar season, then you go through a little bit of a funk, but you can find yourself once again. That's why I relate the two. And I don't think it's ridiculous that maybe Wentz can follow that same exact blueprint that Derek Carr did. And you're right. There was John Gruden in place. Does that factor into what the Eagles can do?
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying it's an apples-to-apples comparison, but, it's just one of those deals where when I look at Wentz and Carr, I do see similarities between them, but I think the reasons for their struggles are different. I feel like Carr's struggles were environment more so, and Wentz's struggles are in part his own fault.
That is very true. What we are seeing out of Carson Wentz, it really is unreal to think that this guy has fallen off to this degree. We just can't have nice things. To see an individual fall off, and not even just the individual, the entire franchise go from one extreme to the next, it's clear that they struggled handling success. It's not easy to handle success, and they're falling on their face, and it's happening really quickly, and they got to stop the bleeding somehow. They fell right on their face. There's blood gushing down like a UFC 253 match or so, and now they got to find a way to stop it.
Figueiredo is fighting on the very next pay-per-view card.
Does that tickle your fancy?
Well, we've never seen it before, so yes, it does tickle my fancy. We've never seen a fighter fight in back-to-back pay-per-views before.
That is super exciting. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm lowering where I am in the UFC world as a big-time fan, but I have been a little quieter over the last couple of weeks. That last pay-per-view card did not move the needle for me very much.
I mean, look, again, every card can't be blockbuster, but I still watched. I watched last weekend. I watched Anthony Smith, shut down Clark in basically very easy fashion with that submission. That was really impressive. So I'm still engaging, but that's because I've been a diehard for so long. I'm just that guy. So
same. What's so funny, Josh? I have UFC. Well, oh man, I can't even think of the name. I butchered this one. What's the services where it's monthly? You can watch all the events.
Fight Pass?
Yeah, I got UFC Fight Pass, dude. To be honest with you, I use a buddy's login, so
right,
that's
exactly.
where I'm at.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I have it, Josh. It's available. I could put it on right now, but instead I choose to watch a little Indiana Stanford.
I'm not watching Indiana Stanford. I refuse to give Bill Walton any of my viewership time, so I put on Navy versus Florida on the Deuce.
I can't stand Bill Walton. It's not funny. The shtick is just not funny, and it's
It's annoying. It's annoying.
It really is. It ruins it. And look, I'm okay with being goofy and having a different style. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, fine. It has been increased to this crazy level to the point where it's unlistenable. I put the game on mute. It shouldn't be that way. It really shouldn't.
He literally, and people indulge him too. People really play into his shtick. And that's what drives me nuts more. It's like, Has no one ever told this man at any point in his life that he's not funny? I feel like no one has.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's like enabling a child who keeps having bad behavior and people just keep dismissing it for like some stupid reason, and then the kid grows up to be a jerk of an adult.
There's a lot of those people out there.
I know, and that's who Bill Walton is, except he thinks he's funny and he's not. It's like, okay, we get it. You probably indulge in a lot of substances. Good for you. But, when I turn on a college basketball game, I need a little insight from my color commentator, not some space cadet comments.
That's very true. Now, I know we're going all over the map right here, so I might as well throw this out at you.
Yeah, why not? We're almost done.
No Sixers Christmas game. And on top of that, the first handful of national televised games when the season kicks off, no 76ers again.
Look, it's almost like the league has told the Sixers, you fooled us too many times, we can't trust you. And now all of a sudden, the Sixers have an opportunity to use it for some motivation. That's what I think. I think it's an opportunity for the Sixers to be like, all right, revenge tour time. Let's go.
But here's my counter to that. Whether they're good, whether they're great, you know that they're a product that people want to watch. And
right.
You look at Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, so fooled us. Yeah, maybe they're not legitimate, insane contenders, but in terms of viewership, people tuning in to watch Ben and Joel in regular season games, I think that still pops enough, whether they're legit, insane NBA title contenders or just a good team in the East.
Yeah, look, I'm not a believer in the whole whatever when it comes to the Sixers. Look, people want to watch them because it's Ben and Joel and the drama and all the stuff that goes with it. I'm with you. If there's drama there, people want to go watch drama. They're not always invested just in the basketball.
And Daryl Morey, Doc Rivers. I mean, there are some really intriguing storylines. It takes a lot for a coach to move the needle in terms of, hey, I'm tuning in, because people don't say, oh, look who's on the sidelines tonight. Can't wait to see them in a suit. That's normally not the conversation. But Doc Rivers is a personality that does have value with this team.
By the way, did you hear the suggestion that we're never going to see coaches wear suits again now after the bubble?
I'm pissed. I like the suit look. I'm pro suit.
Who wears a better suit then, Doc Rivers or Kevin Durso?
I knew you were going to say Durso. Damn, I was going to go that way if you gave me two other options. Kevin Durso's the answer.
Is it because of the cowboy boots?
Love the cowboy boots.
Flyer season January, right?
We're hoping.
He's Hunter Brody. Follow him on Twitter at Broads81. I'm Josh Hennig, filling in for Mike Gill. Broads and Mike Gill will be back in tomorrow in the Sports Bash 2 to 6. I'll be back tomorrow, game night at 6 o'clock. Coming up next, Ravens and Steelers here on 97.3 ESPN, followed by the Jimmy V Invitational. Have a great rest of your day, folks. Happy Hump Day!